I'm Joycey Joy, and today in this lecture we will be discussing about ties with Sri Lanka for India and China. So today we will be discussing what is the relationship, the present relationship of India with that of Sri Lanka and that of China with Sri Lanka, and we will also see what are the possible areas where India and Sri Lanka relation can be enhanced and what are the possible solutions to it. So let us first come to the current affair. The Lotus Tower, which is in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and it is considered as the latest symbol of Sri Lanka-China ties. So this was opened to the public recently. So the Lotus Tower got opened very recently, which is a symbol or a representation of China-Sri Lanka ties. And in this background, we will compare China and India on developing ties with Sri Lanka. So let us see what is the status of relationship with Sri Lanka for China as well as for India, and who has the better relation with Sri Lanka, and what are the areas where India can improve its strategic partnership with that of Sri Lanka. Now let us look at the current affair in detail. Let us see what is this Lotus Tower. So what is this tower all about? Lotus Tower is basically a multifunctional telecommunication tower. So it serves as a multifunctional telecommunication tower in Colombo, and this tower was opened to the public very recently. And for the construction of this tower, an agreement was signed by China and Sri Lanka in the year 2012, and now the tower has been opened for the public. So this implies a better relationship for Sri Lanka with that of China. So it implies that Sri Lanka has got an economic partnership, a better relation with China. So this is the Lotus Tower. Now let us come to the recent developments in China-Sri Lanka ties. Let us see what are the recent developments. Now, when we talk about the present Sri Lankan government, Sri Sena or Maithripala Sri Sena, who is the head of the Sri Lankan government, had showed a strong anti-China mood since coming into power. So the present government, which is headed by Sri Sena, has shown an anti-China mood since its inception, since the inception of the government. But even though the present government has shown an anti-China mood, the relationship of Sri Lanka with that of China has already passed the test of time. When we talk about China-Sri Lanka relations, China first of all was able to resolve all the controversies over certain projects. For example, the Colombo project, Colombo Port project, that is the Colombo Port City. Second one is the Hambantota Port, etc. The port city's execution is underway without any major hindrances. And when it is completed, it will stand beside the Colombo port, which will serve as a major transshipment hub for India. Now, when we talk about Hambantota, a Chinese company has got Hambantota on lease for 99 years. The lease period is 99 years, and an associated land of 15,000 acres are also taken on lease by a Chinese company. Now, a very important fact is that Sri Lanka is a part of the Belt and Road Initiative of China. So Sri Lanka is a member country of the Belt and Road Initiative, and this is one of the biggest projects of China. So since Sri Lanka is a part of the BRI or the Belt and Road Initiative, it shows what is the strategic relationship between China and Sri Lanka. Now, some concerns are also rising out of China-Sri Lanka relation. First one, certain concerns that China is driving Sri Lanka into a debt trap. Now, how is this debt trap formed? This is when the Chinese government or China provide certain grants or certain financial aid and assistance to Sri Lanka. So this will put Sri Lanka into a debt trap. So that is one concern that has raised over a period of time. Secondly, the bilateral relationship between China and Sri Lanka in the economic front, that is, the economic partnership is strengthening, and this is a concern for India. Now, according to the 2018 annual report of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, imports from China accounted for 18.5%. Now, imports from India is 19%. So, there is just a 0.5% difference. So, this clearly shows the economic ties, the bilateral economic ties between China and Sri Lanka. So, these are the recent developments in the bilateral relationship between Sri Lanka and China. Now let us see India's contribution to Sri Lanka. Let us understand about the bilateral relationship between Sri Lanka and India. Now, when we talk about Sri Lankan government's approach towards India, Sri Lankan government, which is headed by Sri Sena, does not have an anti-India mood. So, in that perspective, from political perspective, India has got a better relation with Sri Lanka. That is for sure. And also, what has even further enhanced this political relationship is the Neighbourhood First policy of India, which we adopted in the year 2014. So we adopted the policy of Neighbourhood First, and this has improved the political ties between both these countries. Now, second one is the joint venture deal. India has made a joint venture deal recently with Japan and Sri Lanka in order to develop the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port. So this is a major recent development in the India-Sri Lanka relationship, and also Japan is a partner in this relationship. Now, when we talk about this East Container Terminal, this is definitely a major infrastructural initiative from India. But besides the East Container Terminal, there are no other major infrastructural projects in Sri Lanka undertaken by India. So that is a disadvantage or a drawback. So any strategic relationship, strategic ties between two countries is measured by various factors, and infrastructural development is one very important factor. But apart from the East Container Terminal, no other infrastructural projects are undertaken by India in Sri Lanka. Next one is Kankeshan-Thurai Harbour. Very little information is available about the status of the project to renovate the Kankeshan-Thurai Harbour in northern province of Sri Lanka. But in 2018, India had provided $45 million financial assistance to Sri Lanka. Now, next one is Palale Airport. There is also very little progress in India's proposals to develop the Palale Airport in the northern province of Sri Lanka. Now, next one is the Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement. The Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement is an improved version of the existing FTA. There is an already existing bilateral free trade agreement with that of Sri Lanka. This is an improved version, that is the Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement. So, this agreement is also not improving, or this is shelved. This means that there are no further progress in this agreement. So this is also another very significant agreement which is also not proceeding. Now, when we talk about the social sector projects, in the recent years, only a couple of social sector projects of Indian government has gathered importance in Sri Lanka. And these social sector projects include building almost 60,000 homes for Tamilians of civil war-torn eastern and northern provinces, and also the provision of ambulance services over the island, all over the island. So this is another social service initiative of India. So these are all some of the social sector projects, but very less number of social sector projects have gained importance in Sri Lanka of that of India. Now, recently another rail agreement was signed. The agreement was signed to upgrade a key railway segment connecting the north to the south, and the project cost is $91 million. Recently, this rail agreement was signed between India and Sri Lanka. So these are all India's contribution and the present status of bilateral relationship of India and Sri Lanka. Now let us see what are the needs of Sri Lanka. What is Sri Lanka expecting out of India? The first one is political settlement. Sri Lanka is looking forward for a stable government and political settlement in the country. Second one is economic development. The economic development especially has to be provided from the northern and eastern provinces. So the northern plus eastern provinces of Sri Lanka together, they account for less than 10% of the total GDP of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka also wants economic development in its northern and eastern provinces. Now let us talk about the issues between India and Sri Lanka relations. So we have already seen about China's involvement, China's stake in Sri Lanka. Now, China has funded a lot of infrastructural projects in Sri Lanka, but still India has got more deeper relations but complex relations with Sri Lanka. Now, let us see what are the reasons for this issues in India-Sri Lanka relations. The first one is the anti-Tamil program of 1983. So this has dragged India into the Sri Lankan Tamil question. Now, secondly, the Indian peacekeeping force was withdrawn in the month of March 1990. Now, thirdly, India's former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in the month of May 1991. So these events had distanced India from Sri Lanka till final phase of the civil war. The civil war ended in the month of May 2009. So in the last 5 months of the war, India repeatedly conveyed to Sri Lanka that the rights and welfare of the civilian population should not get disturbed with hostilities against the LTT. So these are all some of the issues between India and Sri Lanka. Now let us see what is the way ahead for India. How can India improve the bilateral ties between India and Sri Lanka? Now, Sri Lanka has got a new president, so it is better time for India to coordinate with the new leadership. So Sri Lanka has a new leadership, and it is the best sign that India can coordinate with the new leadership in order to enhance the political ties with Sri Lanka. Now, second one, India's priority should be on the holistic development of Sri Lanka's youth. It should not just focus on infrastructural development like what China is doing. China is investing on infrastructure, but India has got larger potential on improving bilateral ties other than infrastructure. So it should focus on the holistic development of the youth in Sri Lanka. And thirdly, India should also sustain its interest on developmental issues in Sri Lanka, especially those developmental issues concerning the hill country Tamils, the northern and the eastern provinces which are least developed. So these hill country Tamils, they are considered as the most backward in Sri Lanka. So India can potentially handle the developmental issues and aid the country in addressing its developmental issues, especially the underdeveloped regions. So these are all what India can do. By coordinating with the new leadership, India can improve on the political ties. Holistic development of the youth will help in India's investment in Sri Lanka. And thirdly, developmental issues. This will address social and economic concerns. So these are all what India can do. You can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com. You can follow my Facebook page for more video updates. You can write to me at joycey.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your queries and clarification. Thank you.